to say welcome to another live episode of Grounded with John Tester and Maritza Giorgio. And we want to welcome to Grounded today Sharon McMahon, America's government teacher. Hi, Sharon.
Hello. Thanks for inviting me.
It is great to have you on. We always like to have people with knowledge on our program. So
It's better than having a guest list full of buffoons, frankly.
exactly.
What a great
right.
word. I don't
And
use
if
that word enough, Sharon, buffoon.
I just want to say something really quick because my ancestors on my mother's side come from Sweden, and my brother was over there, and one of my cousins actually called a pretty high political figure in the United States a buffoon.
Oh,
Pretty
that's
interesting.
a
Because
good word.
that's not a word we use a lot, right?
I know. It's kind of fallen out of fashion.
Yeah.
Let's bring it back. I want to bring it back. I'm sorry to tell you, Senator, that Sharon, better known on Instagram as Sharon Says So, you already know this, is from Minnesota. So you're going to have to deal with our Minnesota accents slipping in and out.
It's real unfortunate.
Sharon, are you from that school that Marisa graduated from, the high school that she always brags about where all the smart people came from?
I don't think so. What high school did you go to?
I went to St. Louis Park High School.
Oh, no. See, I grew up
from
up
Duluth.
north. I grew up north by Lake Superior. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's kind of chilly up there, right?
It's chilly. It's already getting to be winter up here.
Sharon is hardy. And here's the thing. Like, she's a former high school government teacher, right? And now she's this teacher for all of us online on these social media platforms to help us all understand complex things better. I'm a regular fan. They call her fans the Governerds, Senator, which I love.
Governerds?
Governerd. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it. She is the New York Times bestselling author of The Small and the Mighty, which is a fabulous book that gives me so much hope. We'll talk about that. She's also the founder of The Preamble, which is a weekly magazine. And so it just really tells us that we better step up, Senator. We should work half as hard as Sharon McMahon because she's getting stuff done.
I'm
I guess. What do you do with all your free time? That's my question.
Knit socks to keep myself from getting hypothermia. Mostly yard chores. We live out in the country on a dirt road.
Yeah.
And so, there's a lot of work to do.
So does John Tester.
Yeah.
Senator, for Sharon's followers who are joining us, will you just give us a quick introduction and then we'll get going here?
Do you want me to give the quick introduction?
Yeah, of what we do here at Grounded.
It's hard to say what we do, but today what we're going to do is we're going to learn about civics maybe. And we're going to learn about democracy, and we're going to learn about what you have to do as a regular person to ensure that we have a democracy moving forward, right? Right, Sharon? Is that
Hey, that'd be handy. Those would be some handy skills that more Americans
really
need to learn. Yeah.
And for the people who don't know who I am, I'm a farmer, okay? And then on the side, I served in the U.S. Senate for 18 years, okay? And for those of you who don't know who Maritza Giorgio is, she is Greek, of course, with a name like Giorgio. You'd know that. But the truth is that she is originally from Minnesota, where Sharon's from, and she got laid off. She's a press person. She's a journalist, and she got laid off from Scripps the same time I got laid off from the U.S. Senate. So we decided to do this so we could teach people how dysfunctional Montana is, right?
Well, maybe the United States, so that we do more than Montana. But yeah, we talked a lot about a lot of issues. So Sharon, let's just start. Well, sorry, Senator, you want the first question for Sharon. Go ahead.
Yeah, the first question I have is, you taught school, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, high school?
Mm-hmm.
And why did you want to be a teacher? Because it wasn't for the money, right?
Well, yeah, the paychecks are missing a couple of zeros. That's for sure.
Yeah.
My very first job as a teacher, my gross pay was $26,000. That was not my take-home pay. So yeah, it was never for the money. Looking back, I can see the breadcrumbs of like the destiny of actually you were meant to be a teacher. I was the child who was like, let's do wilderness first aid classes with my younger siblings. Even though I'm 9 years old and I have absolutely no business teaching wilderness first aid, I would just check books out of the library, which was a block and a half from my house, and then, like, go through them and make a little curriculum and subject my younger siblings to learning things like, French cooking and wilderness first aid. So the propensity has always been there. My grandfather was a very celebrated educator. And there was a moment when I was in college where I just had this like epiphany moment where it's like, you were meant to be a teacher. And I walked down and changed my major, and the rest is history.
How many years did you teach?
12 in
No,
3 different states, in 3 different states. So I really I've seen the gamut of, what education is like in the Midwest and also on both coasts, and they're very interesting differences between how educational systems are funded and run in different parts of the country.
Mm.
yeah, that's the fact. So when I was going to school, and we're going to get into the good stuff here in a minute, but when I was going to high school, most of the history American government teachers were coaches.
Mhm,
Were
mhm.
you a coach?
Nope, no, I don't know nothing about sports ball. No. But
Or English?
yeah, but my grandfather, that was who he was. He was a history
Hmm.
teacher who was a basketball coach. And yeah, they just kind of slotted, it's almost like, the coaches are all PE teachers now. That makes more
Yeah,
sense. But
yeah.
but really for more than 40, 50 years, we have now been shortchanging civics and government and history, social studies education at the high school level for a long time. More than half of states have no, requirement that you take a government class in order to graduate.
And we wonder why our democracy is at risk, huh?
Mhm.
We talked about that with Aaron Parnas. He said that would be the first thing he would change if he could wave a magic wand tomorrow. I need to ask though, because I don't know this answer. Senator Tester was a teacher. Why did you want to be a teacher, Senator?
Mhm.
Because I knew I was gonna be a farmer. This is really a bad reason, okay? I knew I was gonna be a farmer, and I had to add value to the farm because it's a small farm. And I took music, and everybody told me you can get a job anywhere you want as a music teacher, and they were right. And, I was able to teach in my hometown for a couple years.
Mhm.
And, I'll be honest with you, Sharon, uh, I, um I taught half-time for half pay, and so it was honest to God, it was like 6,000 bucks.
Mhm. I believe it.
And and I quit. The best thing I had, we had health insurance, and our daughter was
Mhm.
born Jonas, and so it really paid me a lot more than that, but I quit because literally I wore out a 1978 pickup driving to school for 2 years, wore it out.
Mhm.
And at that time, those pickups were worth about 6,000 bucks, so it was a break even, you know?
Mhm. Mhm.
Yep,
I hear that. I hear
yep.
that.
Any
Okay, so
justification, but as you probably not as you probably know, as you absolutely know, I learned more from the kids than I taught the kids.
Mm.
mm,
Yeah, teaching is an incredible learning experience. That's for sure.
Amazing. Yep,
Mhm.
amazing.
so Sharon, let's go through a couple of headlines. I do want to ask you kind of broad questions after this, but there's so much to talk about right now, especially as we're in the longest government shutdown in American history and no sign of it backing down
Yeah.
anytime soon. So I want to start with what's happening new this morning.
Mhm.
Airlines have now canceled hundreds of flights, 700 flights, hitting 40 airports, of course, all the big major airports across the country. I want to ask you both about this idea that I saw someone float last night. This idea that the FAA could actually ground private jets, private planes to free up airspace and air traffic controllers instead of the commercial flights. And this is an idea that was floated by a News Nation anchor, and he posted it on Instagram. And he said it actually might put more pressure on Congress because their largest private donors, the people
Have
with the
private
private
planes.
planes,
Mhm.
will call and say, "Hey, I got to get on my private plane." What do you guys think of that
Mm.
idea?
Mm. I don't hate it. I don't hate it. Why should the little guys have to pay all the prices? Like, literally, not just pay all the taxes or a good chunk of their income in taxes. Why should they also have to, pay all the societal costs of what this shutdown is doing? Why should they have to bear the brunt of the SNAP cuts and the furloughs and all of these things? Those people with the private jets, they'll be able to zoom into their meeting, or they can delay their vacay for a couple of days without really injuring themselves.
I agree with Minnesota Sharon.
Mm,
I think that I mean I think those should have been the first ones that grounded. Quite frankly, I think the aviation that moves people around this country is really important. But to be honest with you, it is so stupid that we're in this position right
yeah,
now. I mean,
yeah.
Democrats want to put in the subsidies for health insurance. Republicans are in control. They'll get blamed for the increases in health insurance. So, from a political standpoint, Democrats are doing them a favor and they keep
Mhm,
saying no. And it's
mhm.
not like they're asking to set up a new program. It's not like they're asking to, pass Obamacare and we'll give you this.
Right.
These are silly damn subsidies that, in the overall scheme of things, uh, you know, just absolutely keep people from going into poverty. But we're not
And they're
here to talk to
popular.
me.
They're
Yeah,
popular
they're
subsidies. They're
absolutely
popular
popular.
amongst both Republicans
Yeah,
and Democrats. Nobody is going to make the phones ring with joy when their insurance costs go up 120%. That
100%.
impacts all of your constituents, not just people from one party.
Yeah, so
Yeah, and
what doesn't make any sense to me is, and I believe this, and you do not have to comment on this, Sharon. I believe President Trump wanted this shutdown. I think he was absolutely looking forward to this shutdown for whatever silly reasons. And
Mm,
I think if Congress does anything, which I hope they do, because they haven't done jack since the inauguration, I think it's a credit to Congress because I think right now the president would love to see us just stay in this position.
mm,
And it doesn't, by the way, for somebody who works for a living, for somebody who gets around and talks to people as you do, it doesn't make any sense. It
mm,
just, you can't put any sense to it, a government shutdown. And by the way, I think it hurts both parties.
mm.
They said this weekend, the election happened because no, I don't buy that for a second. I think it hurts. It puts a stain on both parties. It puts a stain on public service. It puts a stain on Washington D.C. That's it. Go ahead, Marisa.
well, I need to shout out Sharon because the preamble has done so much work trying to help us all better understand our healthcare system. And I am grateful for that because it is so complicated and
Yeah.
so nuanced and so hard to understand. But Sharon, like we'll get into it. I do want to talk about SNAP benefits in a second, but on one of your recent stories, you said the system that allows the government to shut down in the first place is ridiculous. No other developed nations in the world engage in this ridiculous behavior. I'm going to compartmentalize that rage for another day. So I'm wondering if this is another day, Sharon. Can we pull out some of that rage and you expand on that?
Yeah, it's a deep well that's not difficult to tap. But this is a choice we've made. The idea that we should even have shutdowns to begin with is a choice that we're making. That's a choice we made a long time ago, and we're continuing to choose it. What you're not changing, you're choosing. And so we are choosing to subject the American people to hardship for absolutely no legitimate reason. Most other democracies in the world have the equivalent of a continuing resolution until something happens to change the way that the budget is set up. So we would just keep on operating at the levels we are now while they negotiate, like, hey, we want to increase defense spending, we want to cut back on this thing. Then the new bill would come in and supersede the existing bill. That is how it works in far more functional democracies than ours. And by functional, I mean like countries that actually work for their citizens, not just have press conferences for their own amusement. So there's no reason we need to be doing this. Certainly doesn't harm the people people in the House of Representatives who are now on their whatever their fifth week of paid vacation. It's certainly not harming them, and it is only harming average, ordinary, everyday citizens.
No kidding. So it didn't used to be this way. Okay, government shutdowns never used to happen. At least,
So
very,
rare.
yeah,
Yes.
very, very, very rare. I think politicians figured out a way to weaponize this,
Mhm.
and that's what we're seeing right now. They're the people who want the shutdown think it does them good politically, and that's why we're in a shutdown. Truthfully, that's why we are in a shutdown. I think that there's a correlation between money and politics and shutdowns.
Mm.
What's Have you addressed this at all in any of your stuff? Have you
Well, I talk a lot about money and politics, but I'd love to hear your insider perspective on how you view the correlation between money, politics, and the shutdown.
well, I think people can buy their message. and they can get on TV and buy their message. And they don't have to go have town hall meetings. They don't have to be responsible to their citizenry that elected them, their constituents, and they can just do telephone town halls and buy
Yeah.
their message on TV. And telephone town halls, by the way, are the phoniest damn thing that everybody
Yeah.
can do. And
Yeah.
the people who are elected think this is as good as a town hall meeting people eye to eye. So what they do in a lot of places is either have telephone town halls or they do town halls by invitation only. In other words, you can't get through the door unless you've been invited. Well, that's great to have. You're inside that bubble, and so you never hear anybody on the outside. These kids are starving to death because there isn't a SNAP program,
Mhm.
or that can't fly because we just cut how many flights every day, or that I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on and on. But so that's why I think the money in the politics is so they can get away with shutting down the government because they don't have to go back and face their constituents. Because their
Mm.
constituents, by the way, will be very respectful, but they're pissed off. I'm telling
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. And understandably so. Many of them, like I live in a mostly rural congressional district. And, with a couple of medium sized cities, the biggest city in my congressional district is about 85,000 people. The rest of it is rural. It's, Minnesota's 8th congressional district, which is massive. It's hundreds of miles from one end to the other. I know you guys know about big congressional districts. And so it's challenging to meet the needs of your constituents in such a large district. But nevertheless, when you've had 5 or 6 weeks off from work in Washington, what else should you be doing other than traveling your district end to end, meeting with your constituents, many of whom are blue collar workers? In my district, mining is one of the big blue collar industries. Shipping is another big industry here. So, tourism, you should be meeting with your constituents and not posting performative Facebook posts saying, "Oh, we had a great telephone town hall, 14,000 people joined. Whoa." In which nobody got to say anything. The picture is literally you sitting in your Washington D.C. office holding a phone to your ear as though that is accomplishing anything, as though you're actually listening to the needs of your constituents, you're understanding what this is actually doing to them. It's not any way to run a railroad in my estimation.
100%.
Mhm.
And and we won't get into all the other bad shit that all the money in politics does. But
We
but
don't have
but
that
but
much time.
exactly, we don't have that much time. But the bottom line is I really think that people think you can infuse money into a system and quite honestly lie to people, and if you do it enough, they'll think it's the truth. And
Well, we
money
are
is the only
seeing
thing that
that.
allows you to do
We're
it.
seeing that happening.
Yep,
I mean,
absolutely.
there's a quite a stark contrast between, on Friday night before SNAP benefits ended Saturday morning, there was a Roaring Twenties party at Mar-a-Lago. I mean, that's quite a contrast. Sharon, Daria in our comments has the same question I have, and this is for both of you. But what do we have to do to get our model to look like the other nations? What do we have to do? Do we need some bipartisan legislation to say, okay, we're going to not do this little game and kicking the can down the road, and we're going to do what other nations do?
Yeah, that the answer is yes. We have to do is pass a law, and then this system as we know it would end. Right now, there's a law that only allows the United States government to spend up to this amount of money. And once we have reached that ceiling, this has to do with how much debt we're willing to take on, and additionally, our funding bills have to be renewed every so often. We could just change the system for how often we renew these things. There's really not a logical reason that we want to engage in this, in my estimation. But this is, I think maybe a lot of Americans don't realize this, that Congress makes its own rules. Okay? The Senate makes their own rules. The House of Representatives makes their own rules. They adopt a new rules package every other year. This is not a like, oh, well, we'd never change the rules. No, no, you adopt new rules every time a new Congress is seated. So, January 3rd of every odd year, they have to adopt a new rules package. They could just change the rules. They could just pass a new law. They don't have to subject America to this. They're choosing to.
I agree with everything you said, except, excuse me, there is a downside. And the downside
There's
is,
always a downside. Yes.
and the downside is this: if you do your job as an elected representative in Congress, your job is to look at programs and determine which ones need to be plussed up and which ones need to have money taken out of them. This this would allow the elected folks in Congress that don't tend to do their job anyway very well, in my opinion, and I was one of them, by the way, to not do their job. And education is a prime example. Education needs an influx of money because teachers' salaries are in the tank, and we wonder why nobody wants to go into teaching. We wonder why we can't hire teachers. You can make more money literally at McDonald's than you can being a school teacher. And so it's mainly a local and state thing, but the federal government needs to pitch in too, and that's why I think they need to look at those budgets and say, hey, we maybe need to plus this up a little bit for teacher salaries. We maybe need to give some sort of incentives to get people into the business and give our teachers that have been there a long time a little kick too, so that they can stay in the business. But if you just have a continuing resolution, which by the way is what's been going on for the last 10 years for the
Well,
most,
right. Like, how is that
then
any different than
it
what we've
isn't
been
different
dealing
than
with?
what they should be doing. You're right. You just throw in the
Right.
your case is closed. You win.
Case is closed. Sharon wins. She wins this point. I want to talk about what's going on right now. The Trump administration just formally appealed this decision by a federal court yesterday that ordered the Trump administration to fully fund SNAP benefits. So to appeal a decision that would keep food accessible for 42 million Americans who are struggling. I just went down to our local food bank a couple days ago. We dropped off a lot of food and talked to them, and they are seeing so many more people
Yeah.
every single day. So, Sharon, if you were teaching ninth grade civics right now, how would you describe this to your class?
Mm, mm. Well, I mean, it. I have many thoughts. This is not something that history is going to smile upon. There is not going to be a history class in the future, 50 years from now, that looks back on the snap cuts of 2025 and says, that was a really good moment in US history. Right? We look back on people who took too little action to help Americans, like the Herbert Hoovers of the world. We look back on them with contempt. High school classes examine things like Hoovervilles. They look at the what happened with the compiling problems in the United States economy that led to things like the Great Depression and the stock market crash, and we look back at the inaction of Herbert Hoover with disdain today. And then, of course, there are problems with FDR's New Deal. No government program is ever perfect. We can talk all day long about how FDR hid his paralysis and had problems with fidelity and like all of these things. Yes, all of that is true. But by and large, historians regard FDR as one of the top 5 best presidents that we've ever had, in part because of the proactive approach he took to helping everyday working Americans rather than benefiting his rich buddies, because FDR was rich and he had a lot of rich buddies and came from a wealthy family in New York. He knew mostly rich people. Rather than implementing a bunch of programs that benefited all of his buddies, he spent years trying to figure out ways that he could help put ordinary Americans to work. And that is one of the reasons he was elected 4 times, because he was actually doing something for Americans. So cutting SNAP is bad news all around. It does not matter if you lean conservative or liberal. We should all agree that children should eat. Just that's period. We should all agree that the elderly should have food on the table. We should all agree that disabled Americans should not have to go hungry tonight. This is basic common sense human decency. We're not asking for special fancy gold medallions on the walls of our homes, right? We're not asking for anything other than really basic. SNAP doesn't even meet all of somebody's food needs, right? It meets
Hmm.
a portion of them. It
Right.
keeps them. What SNAP does, in addition to making sure that people have food when they go to bed at night, is it saves people from homelessness. If they don't have to divert their limited resources to food, they're better able to keep a roof over their head. Uh, Nobody should be in favor of more homeless children. This is just a stupid thing to even be arguing about because the overwhelming majority of Americans agree with this. Yes, let's feed the kids and the elderly and the disabled and the single moms and the et cetera, et cetera. This is not going to be something that students of history 50 years from now will speak kindly of.
Can I just say something really quick? This is why we need civics taught in high school.
Yeah,
I mean,
no
honest
kidding.
to God, I mean, history repeats itself. And if you don't know what your history's done, and I think it's a problem across the board, I'll raise my right hand to it too. I don't know my history as well as I should, but it will repeat itself. And we will go through another session like we had with Hoover in the dirty 30s and all that stuff.
Mhm.
It's so important. And by the way, you'd have been I mean, I gotta tell you, I hope that, I hope you're influencing some teachers to go in because the level of excitement about what you're talking about is what fires up kids, man. I mean, that fires
Yeah.
kids up.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I
I
don't
think
I
though
go ahead.
that's why you're so effective, Sharon, and it's why I'm such a fan of your work is that I learn stuff every time I go through your stories. You teach so many people so many things in really easy to understand ways, and it shouldn't be partisan. Feeding kids should not be
That's
partisan.
not
You're
a
right.
partisan issue. Like, we're not asking for anything unreasonable. This is something that people have always agreed on, that children should not be hungry in the streets. That's not an unreasonable ask. It's genuinely not.
So can I ask you about a question that maybe is well, yeah, I can't answer this because I don't know history. But is any president ever tore down a wing of the White House before?
No, no. That's the answer to that is no. The presidents have done remodeling projects. Yes, that is absolutely true. There have been multiple remodels of the White House throughout time, and of course, the East Wing of the White House was an addition onto the White House that began in the early part of the 20th century and then was finished in the 40s. Obama is the person who did the most recent larger remodel of the White House, but it was not a remodel in the sense of like, let's knock down this wall and let's make the dining room bigger and, all of these kinds of things. The Obama renovation of the White House, which was expensive, it cost a couple $100 million, actually began under George W. Bush. The wheels got in motion, like the funding for that began under George W. Bush, and it was almost entirely a revamp of the infrastructure inside the White House, meaning like the HVAC systems, the heating and cooling systems, the pipes, the plumbing, the electricity, which actually had been failing. They had not been revamped since Truman was in office. Truman, of course, oversaw a massive redo of the White House because it was literally about to fall down. It was structurally unsafe for Truman to live in the White House. It was not a vanity project. Truman was not a wealthy man. He was not somebody who was like, I need better drapes. He had to move out of the White House while the remodel was happening. It took up most of his second term. And so that was like, you can see the pictures of that where it's like taking it down to the studs by and large so that the White House structure itself could be shored up. It was built in 1800 on or late 1870s in a swamp. And so,
Right.
like, the architectural, like, it had started, it had been almost like 80 years, it needed help. So, the big remodels under Truman, the architectural aspects, under Obama, lots of, like, none of the plumbing, electricity, et cetera, had been redone since Truman. And George W. Bush was dealing with issues where, like, there would just not be heat. And there would just not be like the electricity would stop working in that room. And so they had just patched it, patched it, patched it, patched it. And it got to the point where like the whole thing just needed to be redone. So, yes, there have been major projects done on the structure of the White House, but they were always aimed at making sure that it was habitable and safe and a place that was fitting for the American public to visit because of course the White House was never meant to be Versailles. It was never meant to be this grand palace that had, like literally gold plated everything. It was always referred to as the people's house. And up until the early 20th century, the president had regular office hours inside the White House in which you could literally just come visit. You could stop by and visit Abraham Lincoln in the White House. There were designated hours every week that he would host visitors, and he was not alone. This is a very common occurrence for presidents up until there were so many assassinations with Lincoln and Garfield and McKinley that they finally had to be like, maybe we shouldn't just give everybody free reign to the president. But nevertheless, we've never had a scenario in which a president was just like, I don't want this here anymore, so let's tear it down. Everything that they have done has been approved through Congress, appropriations done through Congress, where they had to go through the process of negotiating. Here's how much I need. Here's how much this is going to cost. There are committees that did things like when Truman was doing their big remodel, committees that were formed to do everything to help choose things like paint colors, the fabric for the draperies, like what is appropriate for this home so that it looks, we were maintaining the historic integrity, et cetera. So there has never been a presidential vanity project in which it was just like, I need better whatever it is. That's my long answer. The short answer is no.
It seems like my HOA would have more repercussions if I tore down part of my house than what we're seeing right now in Washington.
That's probably true. They'd probably sue you. Hmm. Hmm.
Can we move to another one? You said you live in rural Minnesota,
I
really
do.
rural Minnesota,
Yeah.
on a gravel road, which
Yeah.
is Elvis actually sings about that, but we'll go down a different road. So, can you talk about what the biggest challenges are in your neck of the woods in Minnesota? I mean, I'll put the ball on the tee a little bit.
Hmm.
Uh, the big beautiful bill and reduction some of the healthcare subsidies that are out there, particularly for Medicaid, is really going to put these small hospitals
Yep.
at a potential of closing, and I think we're going to lose a number of them. Well, Congress set back and didn't do a damn thing on it, but that's another story. But just tell me how you see rural America from where you're sitting.
Yeah. It's a struggle. It's a big struggle. I hear a lot from farmers in particular, and I bet you could speak to this even more, Senator, about how the even current foreign policy issues are dramatically impacting farmers. Minnesota is a big ag state, of course. We grow a lot of corn and we produce a lot of dairy, and all of these things are dramatically impacting farmers. Um, we're also have great healthcare here in Minnesota with the Mayo Clinic, and the city that I live near is a healthcare hub. But it is, they feed this. All of these small rural hospitals feed into, bigger hospitals like is common elsewhere. And so we've already seen a reduction in services available at rural hospitals. One of the first things to go is that hospitals stop delivering babies. They stop delivering babies because they can't afford the malpractice insurance and they can't afford to have an anesthesiologist on staff in the building 24/7. They can only afford to have one on call. And the current guidelines are that you need to have somebody in the building all the time because obstetric emergencies happen in the blink of an eye and there's no time to like drive in. So there's already been a number of hospitals near me that have stopped offering obstetric services, baby delivering services, and that forces people to have to drive a minimum of 2.5 hours to be able to deliver their baby, which, as you can imagine, in rural Minnesota in the wintertime, is not always like the most safe endeavor. These things actually impact
Right.
people's real lives. So, and more things are announced every day of like we're going to close this clinic. We're going to, not going to be able to do the urgent care at this place. And we are just at the very tip of the spear of this. We have not realized anywhere near the long-term downstream repercussions of what happens when we collapse the healthcare system to the extent that it makes people unable to get reasonable care in their area. What's it
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
this
where you
is
are? How's it been
Oh,
in
it's
Montana?
it's the same thing. Look, the baby delivering part ended a long time ago in my rural hospitals. I mean,
Yeah,
my little town's 600 people, and the nearest bigger one is like 10 or 11,000 people,
yeah.
and then there's 80,000 an hour and a half away. But the point I'm trying to make is that I think uh, I think a lot of these small hospitals and a lot of these rural communities, they're going to be eliminated. I just don't think they're going to be because of the increase in charity care. I don't think they're going to be able to stay alive. And I think that's just an incredible death knell in rural America because if you can't get health care, you can't live there if you're over
That's
the age
right.
of 50. If
That's
you're over
right.
the age of 50. So,
Let's not pretend that we care about blue collar Americans if we are not supporting American farmers and we are not supporting basic infrastructure like the ability to see a doctor when you have a sinus infection.
yeah.
I don't even have broadband internet where I live. I
What?
still do not have
Senator
broadband
Tester.
internet.
This is something
Hello.
he was working on.
No,
Yes.
I have
Well,
no
we
broadband internet.
we passed an infrastructure bill. I don't know
Yeah.
if the money is still going out, but that infrastructure bill was supposed to give broadband to everybody.
Yes,
Period.
yes. Yep, and I still don't have it. So I'm blaming you personally. Thanks
Yes,
for losing. Thanks
me
for
too.
nothing. I have
Yeah, I know.
no
I take it.
broadband.
I take it. And
The other thing that should be pointed out too is that a lot of people talk about caring about babies more than anything. And what is this going to do to babies and
Mhm.
mothers?
It's gonna
yeah,
increase
you take
infant and maternal mortality.
you take healthcare, you take SNAP benefits, you take the fact that you got people, homeless people. I mean, look, go down the list.
Yeah.
It's hard to justify this, and it's really hard. I'll just say this: if you're a Christian, how can you justify it?
Mhm, mhm. Let's not call ourselves pro-life and then snatch food out of the mouths of children
That's
and make it so they can't see a doctor when they have
right.
an ear infection. Let's give up the game.
Let me
And
fangirl a little bit more over Sharon before you have to leave, Senator, because one of the things I love about her is that she does so much good. And one of the very first things she ever did was basically launch a fundraiser for a family. The goal was $1,000, Sharon, and you ended up raising six figures. And so most recently you did this whole big food bank push and you had all these matching funds, which was just incredible. Last I saw it was like over $600,000 that you donated, probably higher. And then one of my favorite fundraisers recently, Senator Tester, I think you are going to like this one. It was fueled by the hateful messages you get. You said that for every message you received that called you an idiot or said that women shouldn't vote or that comes from an account with Jesus in the bio that calls you disgusting, you're going to donate $10 to every town for gun safety. I mean, that's just a brilliant way to handle trolls. And also, I need to tell Senator this that she also organized a letter writing campaign to thank custodians who cleaned up the mess after January 6th. Like, just
Mhm.
incredible. That's just me saying thank you, Sharon.
Thank you. Yeah, we ended up raising, I didn't get this many hate comments, but people ended up donating like $300,000 to every town for gun safety. We've now this community has now raised $13.2 million. And we've also forgiven over $300 million worth of medical debt via an organization called Undo Medical Debt that buys medical debt and forgives it instead of trying to collect on it. So, I mean, I try. I'm not a perfect example of this, but I do try to put my money where my mouth is and not just complain about things.
I think it's just incredible. So I guess before we let you go, we're getting love for the governors on here. Governors don't mess around. That's right. And teacher support too, Tori's saying.
Yeah.
Tell them about the teacher support too, which is so
Yeah.
incredible and
Yeah.
helping teachers fund their classes.
We've just one example is fundraising to then be able to give $500 grants to teachers so that they can buy the supplies they need because most teachers are spending $700,000 a year of their own two small checks to get things like granola bars and pencils for their children, the children that they're teaching. So like it's unfortunate that they're not given the basic supplies that they need. It's unfortunate that we have a medical system in which people, two-thirds of bankruptcies in this country are at least partially fueled by medical debt. It's unfortunate that we have SNAP and benefits that means children can't eat. But um, I'm not of the belief that anybody is better off just by complaining on the internet. We actually need to move our feet in addition to running our mouths.
Amen for that, and that's a fact. I just, I've said I don't know that I've said this on this podcast, but you lose family farm agriculture and you lose public education, this country changes into a different country.
Mhm.
And public education has been under attack for a long time. Been under attack for a long time. By the way, and absolutely unnecessarily. If you got a teacher that's not teaching your kids what need to be taught, go in and talk to the teacher for Christ's sakes. Don't just sit there and bitch. And now we're seeing family farm agriculture taken to the point where, quite honestly, we're going to see a lot of farms
Yep.
and ranchers go broke this winter. Probably more farmers than ranchers. And so I agree with you 100%. And people need to get in there and support. In my opinion, you need to support public education. You don't need to tear it apart. You need to build it. And part of it is, quite honestly, is get good people in the classroom. And we've got good people
Yeah.
in the classroom, but they're there because they love education, not because they can make a living at it. That's for damn
Right.
sure.
Yeah.
And
So,
Sharon, we like to leave on a hopeful note, and we get this question all the time, and I'm sure you do too. What can I do? I feel hopeless. For one
Yeah.
thing, I will say, if you read Sharon's book, The Small and the Mighty, it's just incredible. I'm a full subscriber to the belief that one person can make a difference, and this book
Mhm.
is a great illustration of that. But what do you tell people when they say, like, give me something tangible? Give me something tangible that I can do today and not just calling the same phone number I've been calling every day to tell my representatives I don't like this.
Yeah. There's so many things somebody can do that it's almost they develop analysis paralysis where it's like, I don't even know where to spend my time. The answer is to do the next needed thing. That is the answer. Do for one person what you wish you could do for everybody. If you wish that you could help all of the children have food tonight, help one kid have food tonight. If you can afford to help 10 kids eat tonight or 100 kids eat tonight, that's even better. But most all of us can do something. And that doesn't always mean donating money. Not everybody has the resources to donate money, but everyone can do something. Everyone can help a neighbor with something. If we want to change the world, we have to start with ourselves. It's too easy to just tell everybody else to change. And I understand that everybody feels like, but I am trying. I hear that and I acknowledge that. I'm not saying you're not trying. But if you want to do something, the answer is to just choose the next needed thing in front of you and do that. Pick one problem to work on. Trying to pick all the problems is ultimately just twisting at windmills. If you know the problem you're trying to solve, that actually becomes an equation that's much easier to arrive at an answer for. If we know the variables, it's a lot easier to solve for X. We're working on food for the kids in the low income school. That's a lot easier to focus on than like fix America. Right? If we're trying to make sure that people have access to medical care, that's a different, you have a difference in singularity of focus than if you're just trying to like fix Congress. We get so focused on trying to fix things that are out of our control that we fail to do the things that are in our ability to impact. And then we're wasting our efforts just being mad on the internet and equating that with activism.
What a great answer.
God, yes. And can I and you're probably already doing this, Sharon, but you make me want to go back in the classroom.
Oh,
I'm not gonna because kids can be better as a teacher
Not
than
that
I
much.
am. Better than they can do better than me because I'm old. But
Well, Senator, I will tell you this, that there are forces at work that are trying very hard to get me to run for Congress. Very
and
hard. And I'm like,
and
I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. But I get so many messages and so like people from high up in my state being like, but you need to.
so I've got to go, but
Okay,
I've
bye.
got to ask this
Good to see
question
you.
before I go, and that is why not?
Well, I enjoy being at my house on a dirt road and yelling at people on the internet and
You
raising
can
money
still you
and
you can
writing
still
books.
look at it this way. For the last 5 weeks, if you'd have been in the House of
Yeah,
Representatives, you'd
right. I
be at
just been
home
sitting
living
at
on that
home in the
dirt
dirt
road.
road.
I mean,
Yeah.
you still get a lot of time back in the state. And I would just say this: it's a decision that you have to make along with your family because it is a big step. But honestly, in Washington, D.C., we need more people that'll call out the other side and their own side when they're saying stupid shit.
100%.
When they're saying
100%.
stupid shit.
Mhm.
So,
So wait,
um,
but before you go, Senator Sharon, that's not is that a hard no or it's like a mostly no?
I heard kinda, yeah, but, if I get a
You can
few more
hear whatever
emails,
you
I might
want.
be in. Yeah.
And Senator, before you go, we do this thing, Sharon. We check in on his hat. He wears a different hat every
Okay.
episode. Senator, what's this hat about?
Well,
So,
I feel like I know this guy personally, and I've never met him. His name is Jack Rumple because I was called a rumpled old man, and Jack responded to my came to my rescue.
Mhm.
But he sent me this hat, and this hat has to do with STEM education. Hey, hey, appropriate thing. It's
hey,
STEM education, and Jack, from his note, is just a regular dude that's out there helping kids learn more about STEM and hopefully keeping them in their own community. He's from Indiana. I think he ran for either the legislature or the House. He sent me a coffee cup too, which was very nice of him. But I will tell you what I was most impressed with Jack. It wasn't getting a hat. It wasn't getting a coffee mug. It was somebody that was in doing the best he could do at this moment in time to help the next generation
Yeah,
be all they can be.
I love that.
And that's pretty cool, even though he does have a cool last name, Rumpel.
it is a
Maybe
cool last name.
maybe before you go, maybe you should, teach one class as an adjunct at a community college.
Well, I did a little thing last year at the University of Chicago as a visiting fellow, and just as when I taught music when I was 21 years old, those kids in that, they always talk about the next generation. Oh my God, they're horrible. They can't do this. Let me tell you what, those kids that taught me so much when I was doing the fellowship. I can't wait till they take the country over because they're going to fix all the shit that my generation
100%.
has screwed up. They
100%.
they were smart, they
Yes.
understood what was going on, they had the priorities in the right spot. Not all of them, but 95% of them did. And I'm telling you and I may do another one of those. I mean, because the truth is, I'm kind of a selfish guy, and I got more out of that than I ever
Yep.
gave the kids. I'm
Yeah.
telling you.
I
And
love Gen Z. I'm excited
yeah,
for Gen Z to get their comeuppance. Like, let's
absolutely.
make it
I mean,
happen. Yeah.
I think I think the truth is take a look what we've done. We've made the wealth gap much, much wider.
Yeah.
My
Mm.
generation, we
Yeah.
made it much,
Get
much
out of
wider.
office.
Yeah.
Stop
He-
running.
he's al- he's already out.
I know. I know. I'm saying your generation gotta go. Why are
Yeah.
you in Congress when you're
That's
92 years old?
yeah. Well, I know I look 92, but I'm not quite there yet.
I'm
But
teasing.
but I'm but I'm
I'm
t-
talking
I'm
about Chuck,
I
obviously.
won't take it personally because Maritza reminds me of it all the time. But I'm telling you that people have asked me to run too, and my reason is I'm excuse my French, I'm too fucking old. Let some of
Yeah.
these new
Let
people
somebody
do
else
it.
do it. Yes.
Yeah. They're much smarter. Give me a 35-year-old or
Yeah.
30-year-old, you know?
Yeah.
We got 2 guys 80 years old running for president. Are you serious? In 1960, we had 2 guys 40 years old running for
Yeah.
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 this is
Well,
crazy. And by the
Sharon, we
way,
have. Oh
that's
yeah.
the best history creds I got right there. 1960 something, okay?
Sharon, we're big fans. I hope we can
Big
do
too.
this again. It's
I'd
been
love
a
to.
lot of fun.
Yes.
Of course, you can find us grounded on Substack right here, Blue Sky, Instagram, YouTube. Senator Tester has something to say. Yes.
One more thing, because one of the comments came in and said, "How can we help family farmers?" Number one, write to your representatives. And Sharon, you may be able to add this. I have to say, write to your representatives. If you can find them in a town hall situation, tell them how these tariffs are just a tax on the people and they're killing everybody. And family farmers are right there too. And the second thing is, tell your elected representatives to enforce the Packers and Stockyards Act that was passed over 100 years ago that will stop the consolidation and let capitalism work in the agricultural markets. That's it. Now you can close out.
Okay. Thank you, Sharon. Thanks to our friends at Pearl Jam who let us use their music for our show. To all of you, our listeners, we thank you so much for being here in this community with us. We'll talk soon.
Tally ho.